Liz, for the President of the United States, he thought this was over. Is it over for you?
Most definitely not over for us. We are looking down a long road ahead, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And how are you feeling today? I mean, I heard you on our air Friday talking about how you felt with the initial release of those files. You have now had a weekend to process it. There was some anticipation that we were going to see more files today. It is now 8 o'clock in the East. We have not seen anything. How does that land with you?
It's really difficult for us. We are not getting any advance notice of anything that's being released. We don't know what information is going to be released, what we're going to see when we see things. And I think that it's one thing for the public to have to go through this information. But as you referenced earlier, the database is almost impossible to search. And so that is adding another layer for us when we're trying to find information about our particular cases. It's really, really just a point of frustration at this point.
Becca, when the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche was asked about more of this material coming out, when it was specifically about Donald Trump, he dismissed it, saying that there was no criminal wrongdoing by President Trump and that the public has already seen dozens of images of him and Jeffrey Epstein together. But beyond even just Donald Trump, how important is it for the public, in your mind, to understand the friendships and the relationships that Jeffrey Epstein maintained in terms of if there was no criminal wrongdoing, even just misconduct or impropriety?
Yes, I mean, the Epstein case is just a much larger example of what's
I think we lost there, Becca, for a moment. But could we actually, Liz, could we actually ask you that question there as well? Because Todd Blanche there dismissed any more material as it related to Donald Trump. But as the public sees new material, new images, folks that we may not have even known had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein previously, from your own history and experience, to what extent do you want the public to understand the types of relationships that he maintained with other associates?
I think that part of how Epstein gained legitimacy was by surrounding himself with men and people who had an enormous amount of power. And while we cannot make assumptions that just because someone is mentioned in the files that they're complicit in the crimes, I think that we're not looking at the close relationships and friendships that Epstein had. And to your point, if there's nothing to hide, then why are they hiding?
And why are they hiding? That's a good question, Becca. Why are they hiding? Representative Robert Garcia has an answer that he posited a little bit earlier. Let's take a listen to why he thinks they're hiding.
As far as what they have put out, I mean, it's laughable that this is an administration that claims somehow that they're being transparent when most of what they put out was either A, already public record. So much of the documents, could be as much as half of them, were already in the public record. And what the other pieces that they released were highly redacted. And in some cases, entire documents, not one word was actually left on there for the public to see. So this idea that somehow they are being honest with the public, what clearly is happening is a White House cover-up.
Becca, I have to agree with the congressman. I think that, and I've said this repeatedly, there is no interest, desire, or inclination of this administration to give you or anyone anything, to give the women just the recognition of what happened to them by exposing all of this, still protecting the men who trafficked in this space and took advantage of then young girls, and as grown women who are trying to find dignity here. The White House doesn't give a damn about that. And so I guess in many respects, what's left to do? There's the legal route, which can get jammed up and clogged, as you know. There's advocacy for sure. But at some point, what breaks the dam or the logjam in getting exactly what is required here? And there's nothing short of the full and absolute release of everything related to what Jeffrey Epstein did to these young women at that time.
Survivors around the world are watching closely to see what the Department of Justice does next here. They released very little information. The redactions are protecting the powerful, those who enabled this abuse, and those who allowed the systemic abuse of Epstein to continue. And we expect to see the full files released and for the Department of Justice to comply with the law.
There's a statement from survivors that I want to read that has to do with the absence of DOJ communication. You referenced a little bit of this, Liz. There has been no communication with survivors or our representatives as to what was withheld from release, or why hundreds of thousands of documents have not been disclosed by the legal deadline, or how DOJ will ensure that no more victim names are wrongly disclosed. While clearer communication would not change the fact that a law was broken, its absence suggests an ongoing intent to keep survivors and the public in the dark as much as possible and as long as possible. So a few questions here, Liz. One is, have you spoken with any of your survivor sisters whose names were, in fact, in that and not redacted? Because I know that has been a pain point throughout this process.
I know that there were several survivors whose names have been exposed, and that is just completely unacceptable. We see documents that are almost completely blacked out, yet survivors' names are being exposed.
We have a statement from a DOJ spokesperson that I want to read to you. They say, as the Attorney General has stated, the Department of Justice has been in contact with victims, their lawyers, and victims' groups. The DOJ and SDNY are undergoing an arduous effort to protect victims through redactions as documents are released, and the Attorney General encourages victims or their attorneys to come forward with concerns or additional information that could be helpful in the ongoing investigation. I wonder for you, given that you go back to 1996, and Maria Farmer, there were girls and women who were going to people with power and saying, I am waving the flag and telling you that there was a problem. And for 30 years, they were ignored. They were dismissed. To now have the DOJ that has a mandate before it to release these files in a timely way, in an orderly way, in a searchable way, they are not clearing the baseline bar that you as survivors and Congress has set for them, and yet they are offering you an invitation to come forward with more information. How does that land?
It doesn't land really well with us. And I want to be clear that we have been willing to help this investigation in any ways that we're able to. We have disclosed names of people, places to our lawyers. They have that information. It should not be on us to come out publicly and call people out individually. That's putting us at great harm. And I don't think that people understand that. And something else that I want everyone to remember. We almost unanimously passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and that was really an unprecedented move. And it was because the American people spoke to their lawmakers and they said, we cannot stand behind that. And so we need the American public to go to their elected officials and say, we don't care what the party lines are. Politics should not matter here. This was a crime that was committed against 1,200 girls and young women, and we as a nation cannot stand for the sexual abuse of girls and young women. And we really have a moment here as a nation to stand up and say that, and I hope that we do.